Well, good afternoon and welcome to another week on my allotment. It's Sunday afternoon. I didn't manage to get up here early this morning because we had a house full of people. We had my youngest son Daniel and his sister Charlotte with us and her boyfriend Carl. Absolutely lovely. We went for a good walk yesterday. Left the camera behind, thought we'd just enjoy the walk. And today's beautiful, and I mentioned on the last video, I think, I'm just sort of running out of time at the moment. You will know, sometimes life can be a little busy, and with the caravan up and running again and work at its busiest, I don't get the time. And of course, it's lovely to have company. You'd never turn company away. So the opportunities for being up here become smaller. But anyway, it is what it is, and you just got to make the most of the moment you get up here. The trouble is, and I've said it before, when you get here, I'm sort of overwhelmed by, all the flowers I'm growing, the calendulas and so on. They all need deadheading. Well, that's superficial. It's not really necessary to the main effort. There's blackberries need picking. The blueberries are producing blueberries quicker than we can pick them. Strawberry runners need doing. I've just done 2 wheelbarrows of water. And all sorts of things need picking, and you just can't do it all, so you have to prioritise, and that's what I'm doing. So I've got about 3 or 4 hours up here, and I'm going to thoroughly enjoy them. So welcome along. It's a hot one. There's nobody else up here. There's a couple of people up here when I got here. I don't know whether it was something I said, but they've left. And I'm making when all seems to be getting on top of you, make a cup of tea, relax. And I have an article here written by James Wong, who I know I've seen on the TV in the past, on Country File and so on. And he's very much into his health food, and he's written a very interesting short article. And if you don't mind, I'd just like to share it with you, because I think, it's all very well learning the how-tos and the how not to and why you do that and so on of growing fruits and vegetables, but we must never lose sight of why we do it. And of course, if you're watching this channel, the chances are you already know that. But I think it's good, certainly for me, I reread books and articles and so on, because it just reminds you why you do certain things. And I found this interesting, and I hope you do too. So just bear with me. Studies looking into veg consumption across populations have consistently found that people in southern Europe tend to eat far more vegetables than those in northern Europe. In fact, the difference can be over 2.5 times as much. This appears to be largely down to culture. There could well be loads of social factors at play here, but I can't help wonder if one reason is simply down to traditional methods of cooking. Boiling vegetables, particularly those that are finely cut, also happens to be an extremely effective way of drawing out water-soluble flavour chemicals, not to mention essential nutrients, from their tissues and transferring them to the cooking water. Brilliant if you then consume that liquid along with the veg in terms of soups and stews. But if, like the home cooks of my mum's childhood in post-war Britain, you strain this off and tip it down the sink, you're all nodding your heads now, aren't you? Well, that's a large chunk of the good stuff going in a very real way down the drain. In terms of the taste alone, research shows that boiling treatment washes away about 25% of their natural sugars. This significantly reduces their sweetness, which is usually the #1 factor that determines how highly people rate flavour in taste tests. This is important, as studies have consistently shown that of all factors influencing food preference, including flavour, texture, nutrition, cost, safety and convenience, flavour is by far the most important motivator. Along with their sweetness go a hefty chunk of their vitamin C, 20% of their beta-carotene, the plant precursor to vitamin A. Talk about foodie sacrilege. The moral of the story is to skip the boiling unless it's in a stew or a soup, and cooked veg really any other way. Steaming and microwaving are very quick ways to get them from fridge to table with a minimum of fuss, but baking, grilling, roasting and even frying will also concentrate flavour compounds and caramelise the sugars in the crop, which can greatly enhance their flavour. That's rather contra-intuitive to what you and I have been told, I'm sure. Ooh. I better hurry up. Cooking them in a small amount of oil will add to their calorie count, but the addition of this little drizzle to your veg can work nutritional wonders in other ways. Some key nutrients in plants are fat soluble, which means cooking with a little oil or butter can significantly increase the nutrients your body can absorb from them. For example, Deakin University in Australia showed that cooking tomatoes in a little olive oil can increase the amount of the antioxidant lycopene, thought to help protect against certain cancers, we absorb 6-fold. The same treatment works with roasting carrots, coincidentally my favourite way of eating them, resulting in dessert level caramelised sweetness and boosting their potential heart healthy carotenes we get from them by 80%. Fancy a knob of butter on your sweet potatoes? Go ahead. Well, I wouldn't because I don't eat butter, but there's vegan butter, there's all sorts. You'll use what you can. Go ahead. Research has found a little fat can double the amount of beta-carotene, a precursor to vitamin A, we are able to absorb from the veg. I think science can make your hobby, your passion, your pastime seem rather dry and boring. But as long as it's done, a little and often, a little bit of science backing up the things we do makes a lot of sense. As an example, I would say in my previous video where I mentioned, well, in the previous 3 videos I've mentioned these little gardening myths there are about using rusty nails for acid-loving plants and maintaining the sweetness or the lack of bitterness of cucumbers by cutting out the male flowers. All these sorts of things, when scientists look into them, they give you the truth. I think that's good to know. So I hope you found that mildly interesting. Just think about how you're cooking the food and try not to wash all the goodness down the plug hole. Right, that brew's waiting. Well, not wanting to disappoint anybody, I have a little bit of niff-naff and trivia for you. And to begin with, I'd like to take you back to the early days of London, when London was becoming a major city, and they had problems with human waste. And of course everyone had an outside toilet, and there were men who were paid to go around in the night and empty these and fill horse and carts and take it away. And it was taken down to the banks of the River Thames, and it was put into large crates and loaded on huge barges that were towed out by sailing craft, and it was then tipped over the side out in the estuary, and that was the way they got rid of it. I'm not sure they fully understood the tidal system, but anyway, that was what would happen. And of course these huge wooden crates full of solid human waste would get very hot in the bottom of these barges, and there are stories of them combusting and catching fire and causing terrible accidents. What an awful way to go. So what they discovered was it was the seawater in the bottom of the barges that was sloshing about and getting inside these crates, causing a chemical reaction and causing explosions. So they used to write on the side of the crates, "Store high in transit," i.e. put them on wooden rafters and raise them up out of the seawater. And of course eventually that, instead of writing "Store high in transit" on these crates, they put SHIT. and obviously they then became known as crates full of shit. So that's where the word shit comes from. Don't say I don't provide culture on this channel. So, now that I've lowered the tone, I'd like to quote from the Bible, which is something I never thought I'd say. But I refer you to my book, Red Herrings and White Elephants. Having a fly in the ointment is an expression used to describe a tiny thing that is hindering the outcome of something altogether much larger and more important. Thousands of years ago, before doctors, apothecaries, which were an early form of chemists, dealt with all medical treatment, and their sought after potions and ointments would be dispensed from large vats. These vats could treat a vast number of people, but a single fly or other insect found floating in them was thought to spoil the whole amount. The earliest reference to this phrase can be found in the Bible, in Ecclesiastes, and there's a number after it, which includes the phrase, "Dead flies cause the ointment of the apothecary to send forth a stinking saviour." Well, there you go, the fly in the ointment. A phrase as old as the Bible itself. Interesting. Well, good news on the site. A local tree surgeon company that I rang have agreed to start dropping off their chippings on our plots, and this is right next to the pile of manure, and I'm busy now transferring that onto my paths. So another improvement, building the paths up as we approach autumn. Already thinking about the winter. Right, I've started moving in some chippings. And I've done a bit. I've probably done about 10 wheelbarrow loads, but I find it boring, so I've stopped that now. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take out the broad beans. There's a few left on them. I'll take them out. I think they're pretty much finished. Take them out, remove the canes, and then I'm going to dig the soil like I've done before and import some manure and raise that bed. And I want to raise that bed a good 4 to 6 inches. So I'm going to make a start on that now. I've got a cup of coffee there. I think, you know, I'll do a bit, drink some coffee, do a bit, drink some coffee, and make a start on that. See how I get on. But we've had a few showers, so I might get a bit wet. But it's nothing too bad, I can work in that. Let's get started. Well, I've cleared the bed and I've got a nice crop of broad beans. I'm fairly pleased this year. The broad bean plants weren't neat and tidy, they weren't good to look at, but they were productive. So that's all I can ask. And 'cause last year I didn't get anything. So it's an improvement. Better next year, I hope. Well, here in the greenhouse there's an overwhelming smell of basil, which is lovely. These are all cauliflowers ready to go in for the autumn. Some spare leeks, they'll be going in, and then some salad and beetroot. But the cucumbers are doing superb, and they're now growing away up and round over the top. But I'm in charge of making tonight's salad because Cheryl's working late. Now clearly the cucumber of this size is far too much for 2 of us, So what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave it on the plant and I'm going to use that half. This half stays on the plant. It will harden over, seal itself, and then in a couple of days when I need a bit more I can come in and cut that piece off, and it keeps obviously better than if you pop it in the fridge indoors. Top tip. Right, Cheryl has patiently picked, actually she hasn't picked it all, but she has picked all the black currants, which takes absolutely forever.
Especially when you tip them on the floor.
Yes, she used that thing that goes on your hip, picked a load and then dropped them all in the mud. So as her punishment she had to sit there for another 2 hours and pick a load more, which she has done. So we've got 4 punnets of black currants, which you're going to do what with?
Make some jam.
Make some jam. 2 punnets of blueberries, 1 of blackberries and a few strawberries to go on our cereal. So a good couple of hours. And what was even more special is our son dropped by the lay-by in his, what is it, a 38-ton truck?
Big truck.
It was a blimmin' big truck, and said hello, which was a lovely surprise. Well, it's the end of the week, and by that I mean it's Thursday. So we go away in a caravan tomorrow. I've got the afternoon up here, so I'm going to have a cup of tea in a minute and a spot of lunch. I've done a bit of watering, and I was walking past the brassica bed and spotted that beauty. So that's going home to go in the freezer tonight. But I said at the beginning of the year, I'm trying to work a bit harder on this successional thing, which I've not been very good at in previous years. So with that in mind, I've got some all year round cabbage, all year round cauliflower. Now that's the first time since I discovered clubroot that I've grown a variety of brassica that isn't clubroot resistant. So I shall put some lime in the planting hole and then I shall see how it goes. Yeah, so a load of that, some spring onions to go in one of the raised beds, and they're the last of my leeks. And because I've sorted this bed out here, maybe I'll pop them in there. Because it's now raised with manure, that should be out of the floodwater come the winter, assuming we have a wet winter. And that we're all allowed out, of course. So yeah, I've got a lot to do. I've got that to do, and of course I've already planted some cabbage which are being ravaged by the slugs and the caterpillars. So if I get these in the same bed, then I'll put the EnviroMesh netting over and that should protect them. And I'm going to try the slug trap that one of my subscribers mentioned to me. And I will remember your name next time, which I can't remember which one of you it was. I will give you a shout out next time. That's very rude of me not to remember. But I've got some plastic boxes at home, and I'm going to cut them and do what was mentioned on the YouTube channel that he took me to. I'm going to try that. We'll see how we get on with that. But today I've got to get all these in. There's still more picking, and I have to say I'm finding it hard work at the moment. Obviously I'm a self-employed gardener, that's hard enough work as it is, and this time of year there's a big demand, and that's wonderful because, you know, my job hasn't been affected by the coronavirus, but now we're back into the caravanning. That takes up every other weekend, a long weekend, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, and then I've got to try and find time to get up here and put in the effort required to keep this ticking over. But the sheer volume of produce, which is a lovely problem to have, because if I can't deal with it, I can take it to the farm shop and make some money off it. And, you know, I give it to some of my customers and friends and family. But yeah, it's a lot of work at the moment. Every moment is used, and when I get home and I've had my tea, I tend to have a rest, but then there's a bit of work to do in the front and the back garden at home. No peace for the wicked, eh? Well, that's all the spring onions in. Down the bottom there under that enviromesh is all those cauliflowers. And I've also thinned out this brassica bed of all the stumps that are left over from when I've harvested the cauliflowers and the calabrese. What on earth else have I been doing? Oh yeah, watering, chatting to the other allotmenteers, bit of weeding. Yeah, the time just goes by and you think, what on earth have I done? But it's all looking good. And a modest little crop for tea. And if you could smell those sweet peas, they're actually from John. They're a gift for Cheryl to go in the caravan this weekend. He is an old smoothie. And as a gesture, I've given him those cauliflower plants, which he's desperate for because his have all bolted. So he can have those. Fair deal. Right, well that's it for the week. Thanks for watching. Thanks to all those who've subscribed and those who leave comments. I always enjoy them, good and bad. And they're mostly good, thankfully. But I'm going to leave you on a slightly different note. Every month I pan the camera around from left to right, 180 degrees, to get an overview of how the allotment's looking. And I've been doing it since January, and I've just finished the July one. So when I finish yapping, I'll leave you with a scan of each month so far. Take care of yourself. See you next week. Bye for now. Bye, John. Thanks a lot. Take and you. Tuesday I'll be here, yeah. Bye now. January. February. March.
April.
May. June.
July.